We've finally seen the future with Amorim's new tactics, and in this video I'll be explaining how Mbeumo's role impacted Cunha's influence, how Bruno's deeper role really does change that midfield, and why we saw Amorim's true plan in those final 25 minutes. So, how did Amorim's tactics actually look? And what did we learn about the new signings? So Man United set up like this initially on paper, but it quickly changed. You had Mason Mount, you thought would be the false nine. He had done that in pre-season and to pretty good effect, allowing Matheus Cunha to kind of link up with him and Mbeumo to always be high and pressing on. But as time progressed, we saw pretty quickly a different kind of formation. So what we actually saw was this. These are the average positions from that first half in particular. And you saw a couple of things, I think. First of all, Mbeumo. Mbeumo was the end goal. He was the man that they were trying to get the ball to all the time, but to the detriment of the team, in my opinion. I'll explain that. Of course, Matheus Cunha came and played as that centre forward. Dorgu, as we now know, is always going to be looking to bomb up and down. And Mason Mount was kind of at times offering that double width to then drive into these areas here. Sometimes he was looking to get into the box himself as well, because a lot of the play was funneled down that right-hand side, or he was actually popping in to help out defensively the midfield at different times as well. But they did struggle in transition, and we'll touch on that as well, because Bruno Fernandes being in that deeper role. But in build-up, it was really, really interesting, because previously, over the years, we've seen how much Man United have struggled. But what they did brilliantly here, and we've spoken about it on the channel previously, but we saw it in full flight against the best mid-block in the game last season. We saw a team that was able to break down that mid-block pretty easily. Now, one part of it was the verticality. Now, this game was absolutely littered with long balls, especially in those early stages. And part of that was to kind of keep the back line of Arsenal honest as much as anything, to then allow yourself to maybe build up or stretch the pitch and create spaces. Let me explain exactly what I mean. Because the way that Arsenal defended, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 as a forward line. They wanted to do that at times, but sometimes it would be one where Declan Rice, as you remember, it would turn into that iconic 4-4-2 mid-block. But one change from Man United absolutely changed everything, and it was Matheus de Ligt moving and it allowing Fernandes to move up one. And what that did, more than anything else, is it made life very, very difficult for this pairing. Now, previously, if you've got Matheus de Ligt a little bit deeper here, it allows this pair to continue to be kind of use. But as soon as you move de Ligt into this area here, you make life really, really easy in terms of getting around a mid-block in a couple of ways, both in the sort of overload in that central area. As you can see, there's 4 on 2 here. Actually, 5 if you want to chuck him in there, or Cunha as well. But also triangles, because by having these two players here, if you do play the ball wide, even if the guys kind of jump up, you should be able to bounce it. Or if he needs to go back, you've then got space from this side. So it really does hurt that mid-block. And what it leads to a lot of the time is just Gyökeres stepping up, Martinelli moving up, and it turning into something a little bit more like this. And that led to, again, triangles, 2v1. Let me just highlight it here. A 2v1 in this situation. A 3v1 over on the other side if the ball had to make its way back over and across. If you needed to use de Ligt, and sometimes he did come and do it, and I'll show you that in just a second. But also, crucially, this big space here. And when you've got the quality of Fernandes in particular, but Mason Mount was an option, Matheus Cunha would drop in and be an option as well, and Mbeumo could go long, or Mbeumo could drop in and Cunha could keep that back line high, and actually allowed someone like Dorgu to bomb on a little bit as well. And it was a really clever way of doing it, but the verticality and the ability of mixing it up was absolutely crucial in doing it to stretch and create those spaces. So let's have a look at the Man United build-up. And by the way, I'm using the JLA Tactics board. If you want to get your hands on the JLA Tactics board, there's a link in the description. Also, because we're doing the fallout of Man United versus Arsenal, the fallout was a series that we did on the channel where we looked and reviewed a whole host of games. We are doing that on the JLA Substack, and there's going to be expert analysis, great tactical analysis, reviewing the biggest games from the weekend. We've got the biggest games being previewed in the narrative and reviewed in the fallout. So if you want to be a part of the JLA Substack, make sure you get involved. Links in the description for that as well. Let's talk about that build-up, because when it comes to this build-up, what you can see is, and we want to come back to this one, this is probably the most key moment in the whole game for me. But as you can see, exactly what we're talking about, Matheus de Ligt, that little bit deeper with Casemiro, and then you've got the four of Arsenal wanting to be able to jump, but those triangles remain all over the pitch. You can see it here, and you can see it. Actually, he's out of shot, Dorgu, but Dorgu's there as well. And it always just gave them those options throughout the game. They did it, and you can see it here. Yoro, he can go here. If he can zing it in, then great. If not, he's got a ball to Delo. Move it on. If they have to go back and recycle, you've got that. You can see that triangle ready to go if you need it. You can see the triangle there as well, where he can then move out, Luke Shaw. And this is a great example in the second half when it comes to dealing with Arsenal's mid-block and that idea that they want to step into that press. And you can see by this point, Arsenal have actually started to become a little bit timid here, because Bayindir has consistently been able to sort of punch those passes through, sometimes through a bit of fortune, I'll be honest, but often with a pressing system, you're looking for an element of negativity. And so as the ball comes back, they feel like that's an opportunity for them. But Man United in build-up were just really, really clever and smart in what they did. And as you can see, Matheus de Ligt does not kind of get involved to make an angle here. He stays, and he actually has a little look to get behind Odegaard. That is the aim of the game here. And what it does is it means that these two, as we said, Odegaard and Gyökeres, they can't be connected. They can't stay together. They can't work as a pairing, because, you know, if he does jump, then there's just a really easy pass for de Ligt in this central area. There's that overload centrally, and then you're off and away, and you're going to hurt the opposition. And ironically, that's what happens anyway. The ball comes back, you feel like you've got that trigger, but it's only one of them jumping, really. The same thing happened actually with Havertz when he came on as well. But there was always this desire to utilise that space that's been created. And Bruno Fernandes, with an absolutely gorgeous touch, we see the exact same thing again. The ball has to go back. The ball makes its way over to Yoro. The ball then makes its way back to Bayindir. And you feel like it's a moment. But these two weren't able to work as a pair, and because of de Ligt's positioning. And that then led to Bruno Fernandes, of course, being higher up the pitch. And in this moment, you have Casemiro and de Ligt stepping towards it. It feels like it's a pressing trigger. But look at that space. All that space in that area there for Man United to exploit if Bayindir could play the pass. And to be fair to him, obviously he had a tough day with the goal, but did play that pass pretty well. Fernandes, great touch. And then all of a sudden he turns, and if he makes a smart decision, they're totally on their way. But he's actually looking to play in this channel here. Not the worst idea, but it was a great way that Man United were able to build through the thirds, and not even build through the thirds, just go straight through the thirds and then turn and attack on this Arsenal side. And if the decisions throughout the game had been that little bit smarter, they would have been in a much better place. But it wasn't just about Bruno Fernandes. And it was this build-up play, but not going to Bruno Fernandes on this occasion, that really spoke to me when it came to this game. Because it's the same thing, going to Yoro, having to go back. By this point, you've got Martin Odegaard being a little bit careful, but still those big spaces in between. And on this occasion, Bayindir then actually makes a ping to Matheus Cunha. And we will come back to that, because this is what Man United need to be doing moving forward. So despite Man United being the better team, the more aggressive team, and having lots of options going forward, as I say, it was about the verticality. It was about playing those long passes. You can see that when you've got Casemiro and you've got Fernandes in this team, then you've got a team that is going to want to play those passes from midfield pretty quickly. And that's absolutely fine. You can see that from Casemiro's pass map. You can see it from the long balls that they played. But there was also a clear focus to Mbeumo, in my opinion, this focus down the right-hand side. You can see that from the passing network. And that led to some good moments in terms of having those runners and playing those balls into those runners pretty quickly. But something was hiding in plain sight, in my opinion. There were certain players that this team was looking to get the ball to. And I think as this team progresses and the characters within them show themselves on the pitch, I think we're going to see a very different Man United, and certain players are going to get the ball a lot more than they did in this game because it was to the detriment of the team. Those A-listers in this team for me, Fernandes, Mbeumo, and Dorgu. In particular, Mbeumo and Dorgu. In particular, Mbeumo. Constantly trying to get the ball to Mbeumo, but the problem was it meant that he was getting the ball in areas where he had to be the creator instead of him being the finisher. And I don't think that's the right way around. And you can see that there were some good moments in terms of Man United being able to move the ball up the pitch. But what I want you to do as I go through this is to look just that little bit closer. So as I said, this was a team with real energy in it and players that are willing to run in behind. And it was really great stuff. Bruno Fernandes here is the person I wanted to highlight. And it's Dalot who plays a little pass into this area here. Zubimendi actually does go with him, which is good, and gives away a foul at the end of it. But you've got Bruno Fernandes in that deeper spot, being able to make that drive into that area, but to be seen and that pass to be played. That's something that you could be really, really happy with. And as we see, there he is, and he wins that foul. And Mbeumo, the ball's constantly going to Mbeumo on that right-hand side. And you can see here, Casemiro gets the ball, and he looks, and he's looking for Mbeumo. It's an understandable pass, and it leads to something, right? But look a little bit closer. That's what I want you to do here, because I feel like something was missing here. And it revealed itself as the game went on. Now look, good pass to a player in space. But look how far away he is from goal. He's got Dalot looking to make that overlap. But look a little bit closer. He goes on. Great overlap from Dalot. And Mbeumo plays the ball to him. And Dalot gets its head up. And who's he looking at? He's having a look at Dorgu. And he tries to find Dorgu. But he doesn't do it. Now, if we go back to all of those and you look just that little bit closer, there was actually a different player you could have passed to. Matheus Cunha makes a little spin. He puts his arm up and he wants to go into that area and he wants the ball. And Casemiro's gone for a different decision. That's fine. Here, Matheus Cunha, arm in the air, wants to get on the ball, wants to be given the ball. Instead, he waits for Dalot, makes a different option. And then in here, there's actually another one where Matheus Cunha is playing as a centre forward as you would want him to, even though that's not his first position. And he's not being seen. And straight after this, he sort of flings his arms up in the air. Now, that's a dangerous thing to be doing, okay? Because if you're not getting the results and you're not getting the performances from Matheus Cunha, that could come back to hurt him because people will be after that. This is Man United, as we know. But the frustration was fair and the frustration was clearly there for me. And as we go through it, there were so many occasions where he could have been passed the ball. This is a moment where, you know, we've seen Bruno Fernandes get the ball. Why is Matheus Cunha not getting the ball here? They weren't seeing him. Time and again, they weren't seeing him. And there were so many instances of this. The Dorgu chance, everyone's quite happy with him, kind of making a run, having a shot, hitting the post. But it's a very low XG chance for him to try and take on. And who's available? Yep, you guessed it. Matheus Cunha, screaming for the ball, doesn't get given it. Look, this body language is dangerous. I agree with that. But should he have been given the ball? He is Matheus Cunha. He is the main man. Dorgu shouldn't be taking that shot. So they could have found him. They could have found him. They could have found him. There's another one where Yoro actually goes backwards instead of giving the ball to Matheus Cunha. Fast forward about, 25 seconds. And finally, we see a glimpse into what Matheus Cunha can provide for this team. An awareness, a desire, a confidence, an ability to carry the ball. It's a beautiful piece of work here, but it was just the start for Matheus Cunha in this game because there was this new iteration that we saw in the second half. And if you're a Man United fan, it's one where it's going to get the best out of him, but it's going to get the best out of Mbeumo as well. You'll all remember this moment from the game. Matheus Cunha is finally given the ball. And what the difference was that the ball had actually just sort of broken here. Dalot popped it straight away, didn't think, just did it. And that's what you've got to do with players like Matheus Cunha. And you've got to understand that he is an A-side in this team. There's a number on his back. It's the number 10. This guy is a big deal. And I know there's other players here in mind and you're looking to stretch the game, players like Mbeumo. But once he gets the ball and his ability to drive with the ball, take 3 players out of the game. And there's some real subtleties in this that are absolutely fantastic. Okay, he doesn't finish and that's maybe disappointing. And that's maybe why he shouldn't be playing as that central striker. because maybe in that instance, it doesn't totally feel natural to him, but I think that's maybe being a little bit unfair. But the touch here is absolutely fantastic. His ability to sort of scan and see that Calafiori is there on his left shoulder, and that means that there's space to the right of him, is absolutely fantastic. He gets it quickly, and he does this lovely little gentle touch, which ends up thinking that, oh, okay, he's going to be standing still. He rolls it, but it takes Declan Rice out of the game because it completely cuts him out. And then it creates this lovely lane here that he can then drive into. This is brilliant play from Matheus Cunha. It really, really is. And off he goes. There's the roll. Gives him that space, cuts out Declan Rice, and then the ability to drive with the ball. And that was the first moment where I thought, you've got to give the ball to this guy. You have to. But in the first half, they didn't. You can see him here as this kind of out and out, almost like a bit of a target man for the team. And whereas Mbeumo, he was getting the ball regularly by every single player on the pitch. And a lot of people will have thought that Mbeumo played really well in that first half. I thought his end product needs to be better, but there was one key change in that second half that led to his touches being in a much more favourable position, not just for Mbeumo, but for Matheus Cunha as well. So these are the touches for Mbeumo in the entirety of the game. And this is nice. This is kind of where you want him getting on the ball. Like earlier in the build-up phase, you might get him on the ball here as well because he's got that ability to drop that little bit deeper. But of course, you want him getting in the box and creating him. And you want him in and around this area here so he can cut on that left foot and do the business. And that is what we will see from him throughout the season. He will be in this area and this channel here. And that's what you want, because you want to have that wing back buzzing past him. And I personally feel like in Delo, I think you're losing something. You've not got someone that is of concern to the opposition, whereas someone like Diallo needs to really drill into that right wing back / right winger position that he's going to be able to play here, because I think it will get the best out of Mbeumo. As I say, one big change occurred, because this is the second half. This is the first half. And the thing to focus on here is, okay, in these similar zones, here and here, but not being able to get into the penalty box. If we look at the second half of the game, something changed. Inside the box, a lot more. In and around this area, so much more. And in this area here as well, so much more. So much more consistent with the areas of the pitch that he was in. And that was because of the introduction of Šeško. And people will laugh at that because they go, well, hang on a minute, Šeško was on for a couple of minutes. Did it make that much of a difference? It did. Not because of Šeško and any part that he played, but how it allowed Matheus Cunha to get into the positions that he wants to get into. And that also had a huge effect on Mbeumo and the touches that we've just spoken about, but Matheus Cunha too. Now here, it looks like he's just had a good game and he's had a bit of freedom. But if we take that closer look at the first half and the second half, it's about the areas that you want him to be in to allow him to do what he does best, which we saw a snippet of in that first half. You can see what he can do in terms of getting the ball and driving it. Can you get him into the right areas to be able to get on the ball and drive with it? And more regularly. I think as the game progressed, that group of players understood that this guy is really good. Let's get him the ball. But by bringing Šeško onto the pitch, it changed everything. Because in that first half, Matheus Cunha was having to kind of drop deep and try and help out at times. And Mbeumo was picking up the ball so much deeper. And in terms of the pairings, Delo was kind of trying to help out with him, but there wasn't any real impact from that. Matheus Cunha wasn't really able to have any kind of partners at all in the game. But once the change was made, it changed absolutely everything for me, because it allowed exciting partnerships to occur. And you can see them throughout the pitch. Matheus Cunha and Dorgu, that is a really exciting one. And Mbeumo and Delo, that is a really exciting pairing as well. And Šeško, as that focal point, it allowed, in particular, Matheus Cunha to be in the areas of the pitch that he wants to be in. And with that kind of dovetail of Dorgu, if Dorgu goes, Cunha can drop in. If Cunha wants to come here, Dorgu can stay wide and then create that area of space for him to go into as well. It really, really bared fruit for how this team actually wants to play. Because by allowing Cunha to pick up the ball in these areas of the pitch and then drive into this area here, what it means is that Mbeumo is not in that initial build-up phase. He's so much higher up the pitch, and it allows him to get in the box, and that's why he's able to get those touches. Because now all of a sudden, instead of focusing down that right-hand side, there was a new renewed idea of going down the left-hand side, because you had Cunha and Dorgu, and Cunha is someone who could drive inside, and Šeško could make runs, but Mbeumo could get in there as well. So now your two kind of centre forwards in the old traditional sense were Šeško and Mbeumo instead of Cunha and Mbeumo. And so when we have a look at that touch map from Matheus Cunha, it isn't that free roll that we were thinking. Actually, if we have a look at the first half and we create those squares, he's in areas where he's probably going to struggle to truly affect the game. He's too far away from goal out here, and over here he's just kind of helping. He's not in the box or not being able to get into those other areas. Whereas we go to the second half, once that change was made, all of a sudden he's picking up the ball in these areas of the pitch. He's on the edge of the box. He's here where he can kind of cut in and make those shots as well. He's getting to the byline for this team as well. Or in that initial build-up phase, he's in a much more dangerous position for the team. It was so much better once Šeško came on and it allowed Matheus Cunha to move over truly to that left-hand side whilst having someone who can pin that back line in Šeško and Mbeumo as well. And so now when we go back to that build-up phase that we were talking about earlier, and those big old areas that were being created by Amorim in this team, you've now got someone like Matheus Cunha who can get on the ball. So it's not just all about Bruno Fernandes getting on the ball. Mason Mount was picking up the ball at times, but maybe in a more conservative fashion. But in Matheus Cunha, you have a live wire, a player who can drive with the ball, as we saw in that first half. And here, this is absolutely disgusting behaviour by Matheus Cunha. There's a little Cruyff turn touch from the goalkeeper's kick. And from there, as we know, he then drives, he gets in behind, and crucially, what happens? Mbeumo. Look how high Mbeumo is now. You've got your two players here. Šeško made a huge difference in the idea of, okay, making an initial run, but then taking a defender away and allowing Mbeumo to get on the ball. You've got Dorgu bombing on as well. And you've got Diallo, who we'll touch on in a second, who makes a huge mistake here for Mbeumo in terms of taking away his space. But in terms of getting into that area and having someone who can get it and drive, that is not this man here. Bruno Fernandes is not that player. So to drag these players, this is such an asset that we saw. And so he has to get the ball. And I think this was a big, big moment in the season and in the game in terms of getting the ball, driving and affecting it. It's a great pass. Now, Diallo, as we spoke about, he's got to go on the outside here. And that's something he needs to learn, because by coming inside, he absolutely takes Mbeumo's space and he's in a really, really good area here. And so from this moment on, for me, I think that Man United team now understands, get the ball to Matheus Cunha in that lovely pocket quickly. And you can see it. You can see it right here, because there's a moment here when the ball kind of sort of drops. There's a bit of a tackle between Bruno Fernandes and Martin Odegaard. And Bruno Fernandes is able to play the ball to De Ligt. And so now, probably for the first time, instead of kind of getting frustrated, yes, he's got his arms out, but Matheus De Ligt knows, and he absolutely zings it into him straight away. Because what? Because he's got that space to drive into, and he can be really dangerous from that area. And what comes from that? Again, this is in terms of just looking at the game and just looking that little bit closer. Matheus Cunha gets it, drives with it brilliantly. Šeško driving, and Mbeumo higher, because you want him to be in that area there. You don't want him here picking up the ball. You want him going and scoring goals, and his output will go through the roof. But Matheus Cunha could well be the big facilitator for this team as it moves forward. And from here, drives it on, plays the simple pass, and the cross comes in. And again, Mbeumo, yes, disappointing with the header, of course, but he's there. And he's ready, and if it goes behind him, you've got Diallo there ready to do it as well. Dorgu's been able to put that cross in, and so that whole team's been able to move forward. If the ball drops down here, you've got Bruno Fernandes who's going to have a go here as well. It's been a really positive window for Man United, but I do still have some concerns, and I think there were some areas defensively where Man United somewhat got away with it, and that is that midfield. And I think if we're looking at the focus moving forward for Man United, if there's something to be done between now and the end of the window, for me, it is that midfield. Because I think in transition with Dorgu trying to bomb on as much as he will do, there is a bit of a problem here when it comes to Man United. And in particular, that midfield of Casemiro and Fernandes. And I think against other teams, there's going to be a problem when you've got players that can really zip it into those two players, and then those two players affect you and hurt you. That didn't occur in this game, and I don't know if Declan Rice kind of wants the ball in those positions, or Odegaard was generally the man they looked to go to. But there were several instances, in my opinion, where I think they could have hurt them so much more. And I think with some of the trends that we're going to see this year in terms of the rotations, and we saw touches of it with Arsenal, but maybe not enough, I think you can really hurt teams. Now, for example, Calafiori here, you can see him right here, and he's gone to stand with Casemiro and kind of sucked him in here. And Zubimendi's dropped deep. Odegaard's kind of come to the ball, and Odegaard seems to want them to move it out to the side. That's fine. But with a better team that doesn't hesitate, and I think we're going to see so much more of this, especially against the blocks that we're seeing. One simple pass to a Ryan Cherky here, or a Thogden here, and you're in a really dangerous position, especially with someone like Martinelli, obviously pinning the low back here. I think you can hurt the opposition so much more, and that two in midfield then gets overloaded pretty quickly, and there's some big spaces that you need to deal with. Now, having a big Seshko in the middle, is that going to help with this? Time will tell. But that midfield two, throughout this game, I thought struggled a little bit. This is a great example of it as well, and it's nothing against Bruno Fernandes. He's playing in a new role, but those defensive instincts, as we've spoken about on the channel, aren't totally there. So when he has to come across, someone like Odegaard was quite easily able to skip past him. Then Casemiro comes, and he's able to skip past him as well. You can see it. So he's taken about 1, 2, and by that point, he gets to about here, and he makes just a really bad decision. He's unable to find Saka, who's making that run there, or get a good shot off, or see Martinelli at the back post. There were so many options there for Arsenal, but they just were really blunt and poor in their decision making. And this is another example of it as well. And this is one of the nice things about Zubimendi, but the problem remains. You've got Casemiro right here, and look at the space that he's going to have to deal with. It's one where Zubimendi's able to open his body up and then play that pass pretty quickly. You are able to get around Bruno Fernandes. He has got that tenacity, but does he read it defensively? I'm not so sure. And when he does jump, instead of having two solid midfielders here to protect, you haven't got the same amount of protection there. And what that leads to is this. Odegaard, again, not making the right decisions, and he ends up playing a ball into the channel, and it's a poor pass on this occasion. But you've got Declan Rice there. But in a different instance, I'm imagining maybe a Chelsea where Fury's going to bomb on. It'd be on the left, as I said, Gittins would bomb on. There's so many teams that I think will be able to hurt and exploit that midfield zone for Man United. So lots of positives, still some weaknesses, but you can see the future of this Amorim side. Seshko didn't play there, but how will he truly fit in this Man United side? Click here to find out.